welcome to another Comics Burst from the Full Force podcast, sponsored by Distant Planet Comics and Collectibles, where we take an in-depth look at the newest G.I. Joe comics and related titles of the week, with me as your host, Chris Pouches McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80. Joining me on this episode is Justin, hiding his feet, Bell. On this instalment of your absolutely favourite kind of burst, we look at two very recent stories coming out of IDW today, including a new Joe comic launching next year and the cancellation of the only Joe-related Sdcc exclusive for this year's show. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this Comics Burst. In what has become par for the course in the last few years, G.I. Joe has suffered yet another setback in the Sdcc exclusives category. IDW Publishing posted a tweet earlier saying, Sdcc Exclusives product update, we regret to announce that our G.I. Joe Real American Hero number 264 Silent Master variants and Silent Master bundle will not be available at the con due to a production issue and are cancelled. The set was going to feature 6 different variants using the previously used Snake Eyes card art from his releases since the 25th line, and some mystery variants. We will probably never find out what these would have been now, but I don't necessarily hear the collective fandom sighing too hard over this outcome. Justin, devastated or whatevs? What's your stance?
I'm not crushed. I mean, it would be nice to have, for the comic fans and comic collectors. I know several of them that are...
Adam, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Who grab onto every single variant G.I. Joe comic that's out there. So I feel bad for them, but, it doesn't, to be honest, it doesn't really affect me too bad one way or the other.
I know.
It would be kind of nice to have some sort of G.I. Joe presence there, but...
I just feel like sometimes with Joe, like the entire brand is kind of a little bit cursed at the moment. It just feels like that way, doesn't it? Like, this is IDW. This isn't like Hasbro or Paramount or whatever. This is IDW now getting on the bandwagon of of having to cancel something Joe related. And obviously in this they say that it's due to a production issue. So due to a production issue. So it's like, oh my god, we have turned the G.I. Joe brand is now Tutankhamun's tomb, isn't it, basically?
Pretty much.
Do you see them getting an SDC exclusive next year? Do you see them doing anything like that? Do you think probably. Snake Eyes possibly?
I would think they will, at least at the IDW side. I think they'll have something available. I think the only reason they didn't this year was just like you said, because of a production issue. So I think normally they would do that.
It's a shame, isn't it? It just feels like everything is doomed to be,
totally
to be into the crapper. In any case, let's move on to some more interesting and probably more positive news. In far more positive and intriguing news, IDW also revealed via The Hollywood Reporter that none other than Rob Liefeld will be taking on a G.I. Joe Snake Eyes comic story in 2020 called Deadgame. The artist, famously known for his work on Deadpool and Cable amongst many others, will be serving as writer and artist on the series, which should be dropping early next year. Liefeld made a statement saying, 2 words, bucket list. 1 more word, icon. Snake Eyes is Wolverine, Deadpool and Spider-Man rolled into one amazing character for an entire generation of fans that thrilled to his adventures in comics and cartoons and hung on his every toy release. My parents drove me all over the country to get me G.I. Joe action figures as a kid. These were my first and most favourite toys. Working with Hasbro and all my friends at IDW has been a blast so far. I can't wait to get this work out into the public. If you enjoyed my recent Marvel work, this will match or exceed it. They also revealed 2 possible covers for the comic and it already looks very cool. Justin, thoughts and prayers?
Honestly, I think this is pretty awesome. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of Rob Liefeld's art style or whatever, but just he's a high profile guy, and the fact that he's doing a Snake Eyes comic is pretty damn cool. I think I really dig it. I'm going to enjoy checking it out. And everybody's going to make the joke about you can see his feet, or you can't see his feet. No, he doesn't have that many pouches. All that old 1990s humor that
exactly what I did in the intro
these days.
Exactly what I did in the intro to this. Yeah, it's true. Everyone jumps on the pouches. Everyone jumps on the hidden feet.
Totally, but he's, especially since the Deadpool movie has become a cultural touchstone kind of, and he was a co-creator of that with Fabian Nicieza. All this stuff surrounding him. He's pretty active on Twitter, gets into a lot of fights with fans and stuff. So he's high profile. He will draw a lot of attention. He just released some Marvel series called Major X, which sold really well by all accounts. So honestly, I think it's a no-brainer, and I totally commend IDW for pulling it off. I think it'll be great.
Yeah, and I mean, let's face it, if you're gonna get Rob Liefeld on anything with pouches, it might as well be G.I. Joe, right?
There you go. Exactly.
What do you kind of foresee Deadgame to be like? Do you think it's going to be kind of like one of those very R-rated kind of comics? Not necessarily R-rated, but, you know, kind of more adult-themed, a little bit kind of violent. Yeah. Do you think it'll be that kind of 90s-esque kind of style?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of Liefeld's prereq, you know, and I mean, one of those covers even looks like it could possibly have a big splash of blood along behind Snake Eyes. So I think it's pretty clear that it's going to be, you know, it could be kind of extreme, kind of 90s, you know, ultra-violent sort of situation.
I find it really kind of, no, not odd, but like all this news has happened like at the same time. We've had 3 kind of pretty big kind of stories break today, and it's just funny that, that this happens, isn't it? Like we just get kind of bombarded, and then boom, we've got all this kind of stuff to talk about. Again, Liefeld, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all we can really talk about at the moment, because we haven't we've seen those 2 covers, which you've kind of discussed a little bit as well.
Right.
We know that obviously what Liefeld's like in his kind of past work and everything.
The things I thought were kind of what I thought was the most interesting kind of about how he describes, you know, what he's doing is just kind of the way he talks about Snake Eyes. Is, you know, in this day and age, people often forget just how culturally important G.I. Joe was back then, and how he talks about how it's a bucket list item and Snake Eyes is an icon, and just how invested he was as a kid in the G.I. Joe brand. And people forget these days just how much of a cultural impact the brand made back in the 80s. So it's pretty awesome to kind of see him talk about that.
I hope that's more genuine talk than it is just trying to get fans on board early on, because
I get that too. Yeah,
because I mean, again, I would love it if that is the case, because I think that these kind of projects are always better when there's a lot of passion behind it. And I think if he's coming into this as a writer and artist on what is effectively a short series at the moment, I'm not sure if it's going to be an ongoing just yet. I mean, I suppose they figure that out as they go.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be an ongoing. Yeah,
no, but they, you know, it needs to have that, like, it needs to have that love behind it, where you have at some point in your life been obsessed by it, I think, personally.
Yep.
So that is basically Rob Liefeld in a nutshell. Justin, thanks for jumping on and having a quick chat about this.
Absolutely.
Again, like almost instant news. Really just so we can get something out as content as well. But and again, thanks for devoting as much time as you could today on the 3 stories. Really appreciate it.
Of course, absolutely. No problem, anytime.
Yeah, I'll speak to you very soon. I'll probably speak to you later tonight when the next 3 stories drop, right?
No kidding, right. That's the way this seems to work.
In any case, that's it for this installment of the Full Force Comics Burst. Thank you to my awesome co-host Justin Bell. See you next time, and as always, full pouches. I mean, full force. See, I had to get another pouch joke in there, didn't I?
There we go.
Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always, you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @The Full Force, liking the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Full Force, and if you would like to contact the show, you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback or questions. We have also started a Patreon page, so if you want to see your name up in lights on these videos or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/The Full Force Podcast, or click the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force. And a big shout out to our sponsors, Distant Planet Comics and Collectibles, located at 601 Business Loop 70 West Suite 263, located in the Parkade Center, Columbia, Missouri. You can visit their website at distantplanetcomics.com and on Facebook at facebook.com/distantplanetcomics. Cobra is taking over this month with Cobra Convergence 4. The entire month of July will be turned blue thanks to Hooded Cobra Commander 788 and a plethora of G.I. Joe related YouTubers, podcasters and much, much more. So make sure you check them out over the 31 days of July. All hail Mighty Cobra.